for staying with us on the Jakarta Collaboration Festival 2021. Ladies and gentlemen, our second policy discussion is about future of work, people and government. Ladies and gentlemen, the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on urban dwellers has placed a focus on the spatial and socio-economic aspects of cities. And now, cities need to project what skills in the workforce will be needed in the future. Session, and let's have a look at this next coverage on the future of work post-pandemic COVID-19.
According to Indonesia's Central Bureau of Statistics, or BPS, the national unemployment rate as per August 2021 was 6.49%, a decrease of 0.58% compared to last year's number. Despite that, there's still plenty to go before Indonesia can recover from its pre-pandemic figures of 5.28% in August 2019. In the capital, Jakarta, unemployment rates show signs of improvement this year and went down 2.45% from last year, but is still concerningly higher than the national average at 8.50%. The three sectors that show the most number of lost jobs is farming, forestry and fishing, other services, and transportation and storage. The COVID-19 pandemic is still reported to have affected more than 21 million workers in Indonesia, where 1.82 million people are unemployed because of COVID-19, 1.39 million people cannot work due to COVID-19, and 17.41 million people are forced to work shorter hours. According to the Future Jobs of 2020 report by the World Economic Forum, 50% of employees will need to reskill themselves by 2025. The unprecedented disruption due to the COVID-19 pandemic has given rise to a digital work culture and reliance on internet-enabled technologies. In that report, the World Economic Forum has identified certain competencies which employees will need to possess to thrive in the new age job market, namely critical thinking, creativity and originality, resilience, and emotional intelligence. In order to prepare people for the current job market, the provincial government of Jakarta has set up a large-scale social collaboration for employment program, or locally known as Program Kolaborasi Sosial Berskala Besar Ketenagakerjaan. This program creates a platform where collaborators can work together to enhance job seekers' skills and competency by providing free training courses directly or online on its website at ksbbnaker.jakarta.go.id. To receive training from this program, users must first log in to the website, register as a job seeker, update their profile, and can then start to choose from the various vocational training that has been fine-tuned with the needs of the industry. All training is supported with adequate facilities and professional trainers, and participants can later apply for job listings posted by partnering companies.
And to lead our discussion for today, we have Mr. Irwanda Wardana, a researcher at Fiscal Policy Agency, Indonesia Ministry of Finance, as our moderator for today. So, Mr. Wisnu, how are you?
Fine, thanks. How about you?
Thank you. Fine. So, are you excited for today's discussion about the future of work, where we are going to discuss about the people and the government as well, right?
Absolutely.
Yes,
Absolutely.
of course.
Very excited.
Okay. Of course, we all do. And without any further ado, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Fanny. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Glad to have you with us. Let me introduce our speakers. First, we have Ibu Sri Haryati, the Assistant Secretary for Economic Affairs and Finance, Jakarta Capital City Government. Ibu Sri will give us insight on how is the current employment condition in Jakarta and what programs have been implemented. Next, we have Ibu Luciani Julia, Senior Program Officer at International Labour Organization. Ibu Luciani have more than 20 years experience in labor laws, including industrial relations matters and training development. As a Senior Program Officer in ILO Jakarta office, Ibu Lucia responsible for the social dialogue and industrial relations, international labor standards, liaising with government, employers, and workers' organizations. And the last, Ibu Diana Permatasari, Executive Analyst, Bank Indonesia Representative, Office Tokyo. She earned her Bachelor of Economy at the University of Indonesia and her Master of Arts in Economics at the Michigan State University in the United States. Halo Ibu Lucy, Ibu Diana, Ibu Sri tentunya, of course. For the first opportunity, I will give to Ibu Sri Haryati. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mas Wisnu, for your nice introduction. Greeting from Jakarta, everyone. It's such a great opportunity for me to meet all of you in this forum. And I want to thank and appreciate for Ibu Diana and Ibu Luciani as speaker today, and to all participants that have joined in this discussion. In this opportunity, let me share with you about the employment condition in Jakarta, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. As we know from the data that the employment in 2020 is very affected by the pandemic. So that I want to emphasize several things about the current employment condition in Jakarta. That's the problem that we have been facing with, but the most important thing is the new potential sector that have emerged during the situation. In brief, I will describe the economic condition in Jakarta. In 2020, Jakarta economic growth was minus 2.36%. And even Jakarta economic condition was contracted for 4 quarters, and for the worst decline was in the second quarter of 2020, which reached minus 80.33%. However, in the second quarter of 2021, Jakarta economic growth significantly reached 10.94% year-on-year. It means that Jakarta was out of the recession. Meanwhile, for the employment, since 2017 until 2019, Jakarta unemployment rate indicated the downtrend. Indeed, we have done the right things. As we can see in this slide, the graphic explains that the unemployment rate before the pandemic, which was 6.54%. And in opposite, in August 2020, it dramatically increased to 10.95%. However, in 2021, the unemployment rate gradually decreased to 8.5%. And then to solve the issue, the Jakarta city government has made several programs. For example, in our department, the Department of Manpower has provided many various of the vocational training for the community of Jakarta. We have 7 training centers located in 5 regions with the number of more than 30 curriculums. And well, to reach more participants, we also initiated to hold a job training program by the pick-up method, which is called Mobile Training Unit. Well, we realized that we cannot work alone, so we must make a collaboration with any stakeholders and other relevant institutions, particularly with the national government. Obviously, we also support the national government program called Pre-Employment Card. And the aim of the program are to upgrade the knowledge, skill, and encouraging entrepreneurship. And the total number of recipients of this program, I think, is about more than 1 million unemployment in Jakarta. To solve our issues about the unemployment, we try to link all kinds of training programs with the related companies. So far, we have established cooperation with many companies that the trainers will be recruited directly beside the government-funded program. We also offer the public and company for any collaboration to escalate the job seeker competence by carrying out job training with the government through the large-scale social collaboration, and we call KSBB. And the participated collaborators and the job seeker can access the link through ksbbnaker.jakarta.go.id to obtain the information and also for registration. The realization of the job training collaboration in 2021 arranged with a total 6,800, and it's about 70 participants from 80 collaborators. Besides the existing program, as I mentioned before, we already have launched the platform named jaknaker.id in November 2021, which is the outcome from collaboration. This platform connected between job seeker and employers and also accommodates the information of job vacancies, job training, simulation tests for job seekers, online training for SMEs, and other employment services. Until now, there were about 2,485 job seekers have registered in jaknaker.id with a total 177,600 applications. On the other hand, we have also the program to create and develop the informal sector, such as SMEs. The Jakarta government encourages entrepreneurs all grow through the Jakpreneur program. Jakpreneur is a platform for the creation, facilitation, and collaboration of SMEs development through an entrepreneur ecosystem, such as startup, educational institution, and also finance institution. The current Jakpreneur members reach 288,000 people, and we have over the initial target of 2,000 to 200,000 in the end of 2022 actually. As you can see in the screen, Jakpreneur become one of the policies taken by the Jakarta government for economic recovery. The policies taken to develop Jakpreneur include business training, facilitation of the credit financing, and also virtual exhibition, and also simplified licensing local retribution relief, and then market creation through the e-order. What is the e-order? The e-order is a platform to create SMEs purchase demand from internal government and simultaneously provide cheaper production of raw material procured by our regional owned enterprises. Based on the data, there are some sectors that absorb the most labor, which are trade, transportation, accommodation, F&B, manufacturing, business activities, and other services. These sectors are expected to be potential sectors that can escalate employment, both informal and informal. Because of the pandemic, there is having a shift in demand job or accelerate the existing trends such as in remote work, e-commerce, and automation. Based on McKinsey report 2021, up to 25% more workers than previously estimated potentially needing to switch occupation. And the pandemic will also identify several potential sectors in the future, which covering medical services, finance, trade and logistics, as well as information and technology. Therefore, the Jakarta government will commit to continue the current employment program for the next year in stabilizing the unemployment rate about 5 until 6% before the pandemic. With all those conditions, all stakeholders, including policymakers like a government, academic institution, NGOs, and business leaders will need to prepare for substantial changes related to the future of work. We will need to start planning for and transitioning into the future of work now with long-term learning program, both for people whose jobs are changing today and those whose job will change in the future. I think that's all for my session. Thank you very much for your kind attention. And it would be great if we expand more through the next discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bu Sri. You made a very interesting point, especially on the government, how the government respond to the current pandemic, the COVID-19.
Sure.
And so we are looking forward to having an interesting conversation about the economic impact, employment effects on long-term prosperity.
Yes, sure.
And then we also discuss what skills in the workforce will be needed in the future, looking at the world employment trends, including trends to meet environmental, social and governance, ESG values. And then I'm just going to adding that this topic is one of the highest priorities of the government.
Sure.
Especially for the city government of Jakarta and also for Indonesia.
Yes, sure.
Because we are going to achieve...
And global, actually.
And global, yes. Because we are going to achieve the 2045 goal to be the advanced countries, right?
Yes,
Bu Sri?
Yes.
So I think this is the concern of Pak Jokowi, Pak Anies Baswedan, and among other national leaders.
Okay.
So here we discuss, and it is a very precise moment, very timely, and we are looking forward to have more voice and discussion from Ibu Lucy and from Ibu Diana.
Okay.
So let's hear what they are going to say. So thank you, Ibu Sri, and then please welcome Ibu Lucy. The time is yours, Bu.
Yes, terima kasih. Thank you, Pak Wardana. Can you hear my voice now?
Yes, please.
Yes. Sorry. Yeah, so thank you for the opportunity and also for the invitations to the ILO to this very important policy dialogue. And again, I'm very happy to see that all the panelists are women. I think this is a very important topic also to involve us. And thank you, Pak Wardana, for moderating us. From the ILO, we see that every workers, every business, every workplaces, every corner at the work is impacted with this COVID-19 pandemic. ILO also conducted monitoring on the COVID-19 and its impact to the world of work. And if we see from the ILO monitoring report that at least this the biggest impact to the world of work is the losses in the working hours, which is translating into the increase of the unemployment, the underemployment, inactivity, and also informality. It's also diminished the labor and business profits, including enterprise closure and also bankruptcy, particularly for small enterprises. It's also brought new challenges in occupational safety and health, how to really ensure that workers, employers really comply with the health protocol and also ensuring their fundamental rights is respected. It is also a disruption to the supply chains, and we know in this globalization era, supply chains is one of the significant business system, and it's giving the wide-ranging implications for workers involved in it. And we know it's not only in one country. When talking about supply chains, is then meaning several and many countries. And as a result, I think it's causing really widening the property as well as gender, economic, and social inequality. ILO also did the monitoring for the Asia Pacific, and our data show that estimates of working hours and employment in Asia Pacific during 2020 is about 140 million full-time employment, and it's divided into worker who really lost job, employment loss, and worker who is still working but really with the significant or at least reduced working hours. And then before we talk about the sector impacted, I really want to talk about the people who impacted. If we see, at least ILO noted that women have been hit very hard with this COVID-19, especially because they are working in the most critically sector, while they are also carrying the greatest burden of increasing level of unpaid care. So they have the family responsibilities and they also have the working responsibilities. And according to the ILO data, in Asia Pacific, the employment rate for women is -4.2. I'm so happy that Ibu Sri presented that at least in Indonesia, we are not experiencing that. But in Asia Pacific, the employment rate of women is not really promising. So we really need to work on it. And then also the other categories of people that we also need to really help is the youth, the person with disabilities, and also those who working in the informal setting. Yes, it is true that many companies and workers maybe have adapted in innovative and creative ways to the changing circumstances. For example, millions of people have been moved overnight to the working online. In many cases, with surprising success, but still, I think the most vulnerable groups of people is still at risk in becoming more vulnerable. And then let's talk about the sector itself. Again, from the ILO monitoring report, this is still in May 2020, but I think it's still valid until now. At least there are 4 sectors that also the high risk, which is the accommodations and food services, the manufacturing, wholesale and retail, as well as the real estate and business administration activities. Again, these categories of people, women, youth, informal worker setting are mostly working in the sport high-risk sector. So for ILO itself, really to pay attention more on these sectors are really needed. And then in what is really then the ILO recommendations to tackle about this impact to the highly risk workers and highly risk sectors. Last June, ILO adopted what we call a global call to action for human-centered COVID-19 recovery. This is a roadmap that commits countries to ensure that their economic and social recovery from the crisis is fully inclusive, sustainable, and resilient. And there are 3 pillars that we recommend the government to look at. The first is increasing investment in people capabilities, which is then it means invest in lifelong learning, supporting people to the future of work transition, tackling gender inequality, and also protect the health and well-being of the populations. And also we are suggesting, and the second pillar, investment in the institution of work, which is meaning here really working on the wages policy and other labor market policy to really ensure that it's still active, accelerating occupational safety and health, regulating telework because it's becoming growing, safeguarding labor rights, and also framing solution through social dialogue. I think this one is quite necessary, especially with our theme today about the collaboration. It's also one of the recommendation that ILO always voicing is really to build the social dialogue to include collaborations and cooperations among the stakeholders. And the third pillar is about increasing investment in decent and sustainable works. Then it means that the government should rethinking model of growth, accelerating the transition from informal to formal economy, and also strengthening the focus on green jobs and sustainability. And then how then is translating more concretely for Jakarta as the city. And we know that Jakarta is the urban areas. It's attract a lot of job seekers. Because of these job opportunities, we also know that youth people are mostly concentrated in the cities like Jakarta, maybe because of their school location, of their education location. But officially also, obviously the size of the urban populations and the number of workers in the urban formal and informal economy in the city like Jakarta is always fluctuating. It's also up and down. Sometimes it's quite difficult to make a manpower planning. But maybe hearing also what Ibu Sri already said about the plan from the Jakarta government, we also would like to echoing that there are at least 3 things that Jakarta government could also think of. First, about the entrepreneurship training for urban youth. Again, I think you are good doing the entrepreneurship training, but the targeted, like for example, youth, women, I think is very important for Jakarta. And then providing various short-term training with training allowances, of course, to make it incentive, especially in the digital skills. I think that's really necessary. And also still giving subsidized job experience program, I think is also important for the youth and also for the person with disabilities and other vulnerable group of workers. So that is also could increase their skill, especially those for the sector who are in the digital sector. Maybe that's for me now to start our discussion. Thank you, Pak Wardana. Over to you.
Thank you, Ibu Lucy. Very wonderful to listen on the international perspective on how it's going on now in the cross-country studies. So we are delightful to have your information. And now let's hear from Japan's perspective, actually, because Ibu Diana lives in Tokyo. I've been there for 2 years, and then I saw quite interesting similar traits from the Japanese people and the Javanese people. So it is interesting to hear from Ibu Diana. Please, Ibu Diana, the time is yours.
Thank you, Bapak Wardana. Assistant Secretary of Economic Affairs and Finance, Jakarta Capital City Government, Ibu Sri Haryati, Senior Program Officer ILO, Ibu Luciana Julia, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Very good morning to all of you. I'd like first of all to thank the Jakarta Capital City Government for inviting me here today. It's an honor to have this opportunity. In my presentation, I would like to share how central and local government are working together with the citizens to build Jakarta as a resilient and sustainable city. In doing so, I would like to share the opportunity for Jakarta from the global economy, domestic economy, Jakarta's competitive advantage, and Japan's experience. Okay, so let me first give you a brief overview of the global and domestic economy and the opportunity for Jakarta. So global economic growth moderated, as we all know, in various countries during the third quarter of 2021, including the United States, China, and Japan, as a corollary of the highly contagious Delta variant of coronavirus, supply chain disruptions, and ongoing energy shortage. On the other hand, a solid growth has been maintained in Europe as economies continue to reopen. Entering the fourth quarter of 2021, the global economic recovery is expected to persist, as confirmed by several early indicators in October 2021, such as the Purchasing Managers Index, consumer confidence, and retail sales, as well as the easing of energy shortage in China. Bank Indonesia, therefore, projects global economic growth in 2021 will increase to 5.7%, with similarly solid performance expected in 2022. So along with the rise of global economy, both trade volume and international commodity prices also continue to rise, thereby supporting the export outlook in developing economies. Meanwhile, the national economy grew 3.51% year-on-year in the third quarter of 2021, decelerating from 7.07% year-on-year on the previous period after the government reintroduced a mobility restriction to contain the Delta variant of COVID-19. Economic performance in the reporting period was supported by solid exports despite restrained household consumption and investment. By sector, the key drivers of domestic economic growth are manufacturing, trade, mining, and especially supported by economic performance in the Sulawesi, Maluku, Papua, Kalimantan, and Sumatra region. This will become an opportunity for Jakarta. Bank Indonesia project stronger economic growth in the fourth quarter of 2021, underpinned by solid exports, larger fiscal spending, as well as increasing consumption and investment activity. This was confirmed by improving indicators at the beginning of November 2021, including public mobility, retail sales, consumer expectations, manufacturing PMI, as well as export and import. Consequently, economic growth in 2021 and 2022 is projected to be 3.2% to 4% and 4.7% to 5.5% respectively. Meanwhile, prolonged COVID-19 pandemic gave a scaring effect to corporation and household that could lead to financial system instability. Social mobility restriction to contain the spread of the pandemic has led to lower business activity, sales, liquidity, profitability, and capital. Leverage and corporate default level increases almost to the level of global finance crisis 2008, especially in US and Europe. Pandemic also increases the need to implement green finance economy, especially in advanced economies. They demand continuing carbon emission reduction, which reaches 8 to 9% during COVID-19, larger than reduction during 2008 global finance crisis of 2 to 3%. As social mobility is restricted, online commerce and communication hiked. Consumers need to fulfill their consumption needs faster and more frequent by using an e-commerce platform. This is indicated by very huge volume and frequency retail transaction. This brings me to my second point. Jakarta is considered a mega city. The strategy to build a more resilient and sustainable Jakarta is by enhancing its promising economic sectors, as already mentioned by Ibu Sri, especially in the services which include tourism, economy, creative, and finance. So yeah, in the economic creative sector, the backward and forward linkages of the industries are relatively low, so that these industries have not become major industries. However, they have a high output multiplier, meaning that developing these industries will lead to higher overall economic growth. Specifically in Jakarta, Jakarta's export is dominated by automotive industry, we know that. But in the competitive advantage mapping, the automotive industry is in the rising star quadrant, which means that this industry's export has high market potential amid huge global demand for automotive. However, in this first quadrant, Jakarta creative industries such as movies, animation, video, music, application, games, etc. are also in the same quadrant, which being nurtured can be new sources of growth for Jakarta. Now let me turn to the last part of my presentation. How is the collaboration to build Jakarta more resilient and sustainable? For this, I would like to take experience from Japan, combining with the opportunities Jakarta is facing today. Now, Japan is facing a severe stagnation with shrinking and aging population. Boosting productivity and innovation are key to growth. Many students now still prefer stable salaryman, which means salaryman jobs in big firms, but some of today's brightest graduates go into startups. So one of the city to boost startups in Japan is Fukuoka Prefecture. As one of the national strategic special joint initiatives, Fukuoka City has been approved to implement a startup visa to incentivize foreigners to be business entrepreneurs in Fukuoka. Prerequisites for the business manager visa, which is required for foreigners intending to start a business in Japan, is for foreigners who found his or her business in Fukuoka. One example of startup incubator is Fukuoka Growth Next, that has support from Fukuoka government that provides the building for the activity. They also get some sponsors from private companies to finance the startups. This can be also done by Jakarta collaborating by the government and the private. On the front of green economy, I would like to make example of the garbage disposal done by the households. There are good reasons behind Japan's motivation to tackle its waste. In the bubble economy of the 1980s and early 1990s, production of plastic grew quickly, and so did the country's waste problem. Between 1993 and 2000, number of plastic bottles produced tripled to more than 360,000 tons, according to Japan's Environment Ministry. So the Japanese, in other aspect, the Japanese have a word for the sense of regret they feel when something valuable is wasted, called mottainai. It can be translated as don't waste anything worthy or what waste, and has come to represent the island nation's environmental awareness. So they have this good waste management. Today, Japan is second only to the US as the world's biggest generator of plastic packaging waste per capita, according to the United Nations Environment Program. Last year, UNEP noted, thanks to a very effective waste management system and a high degree of social consciousness, Japan accounts for relatively limited leakages of single-use plastics in the environment. So that completes my presentation. In conclusion, I'd like to point again the key points. Firstly, Jakarta's economy has potential to recover in the fourth quarter of 2021 and the whole year of 2022, in line with the recovery of global and domestic economy. Secondly, Jakarta needs to prioritize sectors to the more resilient, such as the economic creative industry. Thirdly, to become more resilient and sustainable city, government and people need to collaborate in the promising sectors and in preserving the environment. Thank you for your attention. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Ibu Diana, arigatou gozaimasu. Thank you for your presentation. Very, very interesting, because we get from all the speakers not only the city experience, Jakarta, but also the global one from Ibu Lucy. And then we take a peek on what is going on in Japan, our older brother. And then today we have a rounded discussion and understanding about what is the future of work from the Jakarta administrator, and then from the labor practitioner, and also an economist. So it's very interesting discussion, and would like to engage more in the Q&A session. And actually we have received a number of questions from audience. So be ready, Ibu-Ibu.
Sure.
All of you. And the first opportunity goes to Ibu Sri Haryati. So the first question, usually most government programs have been just carried out at the beginning, and then suddenly it just pays out. So can you mention or giving the assurance that how can the job training program in Jakarta will be sustainable?
Thank you. Thank you, Mas Wisnu. I think it's very good question. Firstly, I think as a government, we have to allocate our budget for that program. It's very important. And then the program must be based on market demand. And one important thing for us, for Jakarta government, is how program must be as the movement.
Okay.
Because that movement will be carried not just government, not only just government, but all stakeholders.
All together, right?
All together.
Okay.
Collaboration. Government, academic institution, business sector, and
NGOs?
also NGOs and the people in Jakarta.
Okay.
I think it's key of the sustainable program.
Although I'm not the people of Jakarta, outside Jakarta.
But you work in Jakarta, right?
Yes. All right. It's a very good answer from you. And then, how about, oh well, this is, the second one will be to Ibu Lucy.
Okay, sure.
It's an equitable discussion.
Okay.
All right, Bu Lucy, I would like to ask questions from the audience. How's the condition of Indonesia's employment from the ILO's point of view? Please, Bu Lucy.
Yes, thank you for the questions. How is ILO look at the Indonesian's employment? I think now labor market indicators in Indonesia show some signs of recovery of the pandemic. But yet the recovery is not even across the groups of workers. Like I mentioned before, for the informal workers, for example, I think they are still at the really high risk, and really we have to make sure that they will also can recover from all the policies made by the government. What we are really hoping is also that the policy for government is not only targeted to the formal workers, for example, like the last wage subsidy. I think that should be also like giving opportunity for the informal worker settings. Also, another concern from the ILO is, like I mentioned before, those in the vulnerable groups of workers, youth, I think is also really important. We still see that the employment for youth could be challenging because they are still really new to the labor market. They are not experienced enough to really get the work promptly from the recovery of the pandemic. So special attentions also need to be given to them, and then also the women. And the person with disabilities. I think those other categories that we also need more special attentions to really ensure that they are inclusive, that they can also be resilient, and to be back to the labor market. But in general, it's a progress. But again, what we are really recommending is to have more targeted people for this recovery. Hope this answer the questions.
Okay, thank you, Bu Lucy. If we are going to give a rating on the Indonesian performance on labor and unemployment currently compared to the peers in the Asian, the Pacific region, so what is the stars you are going to give from 1 to 5?
Okay, I don't think like I like to give the rating, but we note at least that Indonesia government is one of the country that really give quite a lot of investment budget for recovery. First is China, Japan, Singapore, but Indonesia is another big country that really secure a lot of budget for the recovery. So I really appreciate that the government for that efforts.
So at least 4 stars, right? At least 4, eh?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Congratulate Bu Sri, ya. You got 4 stars from Ibu Lucy. Okay, thank you for your answer. And then this is a very interesting question on the Japan condition. Yeah, Ibu Diana has provided us about the current situation condition in Japan. But how if we are looking from the point of view before and after the pandemic? So how to say that the Japanese response was pretty good at the beginning, and then they got trouble. And then how is the current condition, Bu Diana? Maybe you can mention or you observe from the daily activities there. At least how we are going to wear the mask here. Because we are adapting the new normal. We are not wearing any mask now. So how about the Japanese people?
Okay. Thank you, Pak Wardana. I'm working at home right now, so I don't wear mask. Okay, now Japan's COVID condition is very good. It's considered with Israel the best country to handle COVID, because now after the COVID case shot up during the Olympic, but now it's in August, so now it's really go down until about only 100 cases every day, and it stays there now, very low cases in every day in Japan and in Tokyo. And the habit of the society, the people, they have already have the habit to wear mask before COVID. So when they have to wear mask now, it's not. Yeah, they're not. They're already accustomed, and the people are very disciplined. And now I see everywhere, even in the open space in the park, they still wear mask. Although now the case is very low, maybe that's one of the reason why the case here in Tokyo remain slow, remain low, very low. For these 2 months, for the past 2 months, and then now the vaccine also accelerate. At the beginning of the COVID, they are very slow in adopting vaccine, but now it has become the second job already reaches countrywide, about 70%. So it's very good, and then. And then the reaction for the Omicron is strong. They close border for every country, not only from Africa. But in domestic, they don't do the PPKM. So we don't have SOS, state of emergency now, although there is Omicron outside, but they close the border. But inside, we still have a normal economy activity. So we, the subway and bus, even until 10 p.m. at night, still full with people. But everyone wear masks and they don't speak in the public transportation. So the COVID case is still very low, despite the economic activity begin to recover in domestic, especially also in the tourism places. Now, after the state of emergency is lifted up, they are jammed with the domestic tourists, with the people from Japan, like in Kyoto during this fall season. It's very full, but everyone wear masks, so I think everyone feels safe. And also the COVID case is stays low now, even after there is the Omicron. Maybe that's the experience we can have from Japan.
Thank you, Bu Diana. We are done talking about our neighbor country, and we are now down to earth to Indonesia. So from the perspective of the monetary and the economic expertise, what is the priorities for the government? Which sector should be helped, should be addressed to recover from the current pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic? What do we think about which sector, economic sector, should be helped by the government? First thing first. Please, Bu Diana.
In Jakarta, you mean?
In Jakarta, right, or Indonesia as well.
Okay, we have talked about this many times, ya, Ibu Sri, before I went to Japan. I work closely with Ibu Sri. Jakarta main industry is automotive, but they have Jakarta also has maybe alternative for new growth from the services, financial sector, and the economy creative sector. The economy creative sector, the Jakarta has potential, but maybe as my presentation before, there is low linkages backward and forward with other sector. Maybe in the future, in Jakarta can link it with the MICE industry because they have Jakarta has potential in MICE industry with the infrastructure and the events, international event after the COVID passed. Maybe the economy creative sector, the UMKM, can be linked with the MICE industry. So they can, when the MICE industry recover after the COVID, the UMKM also will go further with MICE industry. And also maybe we can link the UMKM with the automotive industry. So when the automotive industry rising after this semiconductor shortage passed, the UMKM in the automotive industry also will recover. Maybe that's the shortest recommendation.
Thank you, Bu Diana. Thank you, Bu Diana. Thanks to your policy recommendation, now we are getting more traffic jam every day. Okay, and then we come to Ibu Lucy again. Well, now we see that the tech companies around the world are going to implement the forever work from home. That's one of the impact of the pandemic. And it's very actually comfortable for us, but not all, because we don't have boundary between life and work, and then it's getting difficult to get relaxed from the activities. So the question is, the COVID-19 pandemic caused a shift in demand job to remote work, e-commerce, and automation that Ibu Sri already mentioned.
Yes.
And then what do you think the most important skills we need as a labor force, especially in Jakarta, to face this condition? Please, Ibu Lucy.
Yes, thank you again, Pak Wardana, for the questions. I think, yes, Indonesian labor market has been in transitions and still low and middle skilled jobs are at high risk of the automatizations. I think we cannot deny that our labor market is still dominated by this low and middle skill. That's why we also need to ensure that our workforce can attain for the better skills, which is then we cannot avoid from the future of work. All the routine tasks, the workplaces will be changing. I think it's not only the questions about the sectors, but it will happen in almost all sectors, especially those who are doing the routine and low skill job will be kind of replaced by the automatizations or the robotization. That's why million of jobs may be gone, but also million of jobs can be created. I think that's why we need to invest more on the skills of the workers, especially on the STEM, the science, engineering, technology, and mathematics. Those are the things, the hard skills that now we should now aim to train our workers. And again, my concern is on these women, youth, and other vulnerable workers, which sometimes they don't really have access to this STEM training. I think that's we start really to given more opportunity for them, because all sectors will be impacted by this STEM at the future. And again, ILO has data on this study, which is even conducted 4 years ago, and we already alerted that Indonesia should be prepared. Otherwise, we cannot take the opportunity of the growing sectors with engaging on the STEM with the STEM skills. I think that's what we really need to pay attention, Pak Wardani.
Thank you, Bu Lucy. There's a growing demand from the labor force that they are demanding to have not 5 days, working days, but 4 or 3 days. So what do you think, Bu? This is a tough question for you. 3 or 4 days, Bu?
No. Yeah, that's true. Actually, that's true. You know,
Ibu Sri.
Bu, that's quite dilemmatic. You know, in other side of the world, in the European countries, probably also in Japan. They are reducing their working time, right? Now, I think also in the, if I'm not mistaken, in the Emirates Arabs, they are also reducing, becoming 4.5 days a week. So it's happening in the other world, but maybe in our world, the working hour is longer because of this working from home mode. Yes. I don't know what happened with you, but
only 4 days, Bu,
with me probably.
But 20 hours per day. Yeah, Bu Sri.
Yeah.
Of course. Okay,
well,
that's not
I think
good for us.
for the ILO, we are still we still have the standard working hour for 8 hours a day. It's regardless how you want to make it. You know, either it's 5 days a work, 8 hours a day with a maximum 40 hours a week. So that's really the decent working hours. But if people, but I think
I would like to ask Bu Sri, is there any plan from the Jakarta government that is going to have introduce the 4 days working days, maybe?
4 days, I'm not sure.
Okay.
Because I think it's a national government.
Oh, there's national government.
Yes, there's
maybe Jakarta can be the pilot project implementer, right? Maybe. Okay, we have the last question. Yes, goes to Ibu Sri. So during the implementation of community activity restriction, PPKM, yes, economy and business activities got strictly limited, and it has impacted many workers in terms of the decreased turnover, income, and lost jobs.
Yeah.
So I would like to ask you about what efforts have been made by Jakarta city government to support the workers.
Yeah, thank you, Mas Wisnu. Actually, Jakarta government, we have a program to protect welfare of workers, which call worker card. It's like a card, kartu pekerja.
Kartu, okay.
Yeah, worker card,
okay.
kartu pekerja. What is the Kartu Jakarta? This is the program to help the workers to reduce their daily spending through the food subsidy and also free transportation and educational, educational costs for workers' children. And also we have made many efforts, among others, to synergize with the national government, like I mentioned before, especially the Indonesian Minister of Manpower, to update data and socialize of pre-employment card, also card, to facilitate the record job training as for informal workers or also SMEs. We support to promote and market their various products through Jakarta public facilities and other marketplace. In addition, we also synergize with the Ministry of Cooperative and SMEs to provide incentive for the productive micro enterprises. It's the name of BPUM. Yeah,
BPUM.
We support about the national government.
Well, because we see that a lot of benefits provided to the Jakarta's society, Jakarta citizens. Maybe I would like to change my residency from other outside of Jakarta. All right, this is a very interesting discussion. So I would like to conclude our policy discussion into 3 points. The first one is the government has done so much work and policy incentives to help and to support the workers, and also to enable the workers to live in better ways, to maintain their healthy lifestyle and to improve their productivity. That is a very good way. And Bu Lucy has provided 4 stars from 5. And then the second one is that the global the global community has concerned and has built the consensus that we need to improve the people capabilities, the sustainable work, and the collaboration to improve the international worker condition in a better way, especially in the urban areas. That is a very good way to collaborate. And the last one that we heard and we listened from the speakers that Indonesia and Jakarta city government are doing well in helping the workers, and we are hoping that the collaboration and the work is going to be sustainable, not only because of the pandemic, but also because of we are having a challenging work situation in the future. So that is my conclusion, the wrap up for the discussion. And yes, so before we close this event, we would like to invite Ibu Sri to convey her closing remarks. Please, Ibu Sri.
Okay, well, during 2021, we have made efforts to deal with the pandemic, especially for employment. We have adapted very well in terms of how we work, how we interact, and intention through digitalization. The COVID-19 pandemic is not over yet, right? The effort for economic and employment recovery will not run optimally without solving health problems. So we need collaboration and synergy from all parties or stakeholders. Importantly, the recovery should be inclusive, not a return to business as usual, to make our city a livable place for everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ibu Sri. I found this event is very exciting. Unfortunately, we must close the session. Thank you all for coming today. Those of you who are listening from anywhere, thank you for sharing your time with us. We hope that you have found this event to be helpful and insightful. I want to thank all the speakers and of course Ibu Sri for making this event possible for all of us to discuss on this topic that we all care and very relevant to our society. Thanks a lot. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And then I'm giving back to our host, Fanny. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Wisnu. From this discussion, we could see and we could know that there are a lot of thoughts and efforts that the government has actually put into the policy making, and we to ensure the safety for everyone and the people, you know, so that we do believe that it will bring a greater impact for us in the next future. So thank you so much, Mr. Wisnu, for moderating the discussion for today, and thank you to our esteemed speakers for extending your knowledge, and to our participants for engaging with us. And thank you for excellently moderating this discussion, Mr. Wisnu. And we really believe that this would bring a lot of insights to you all. And let us move on to the third series of our policy discussion today on the climate resilient urban planning with my colleagues Amelia Yahya. Please stay with us. Thank you so much.